Thank you to everybody, and thanks to the team at Paydirt for coming up with a plan for me to be able to present virtually. I'm here today to talk to you about our Makuutu rare earth project in Uganda, which is looking at supplying a vast amount of critical and heavy rare earths to provide an alternative source to help complement the electric vehicle batteries and provide the drive via the permanent magnet motors to help achieve carbon neutrality. Just our forward-looking statements and CP statements and disclaimers. So one of the strategic advantages of the Makuutu rare earth project is the nature of the mineralisation. Being an ionic adsorption clay, it's vastly different to many of the other projects that investors have direct access to investment in Western exchanges. It produces a very well balanced basket, which has a blend of both critical and heavy rare earths, which is vastly different to what you'll typically find with the light rare earth mineral concentrates, which are dominated by the low value lanthanum and cerium products and derive the bulk of their revenue from the praseodymium and neodymium products. Ionic produces, or the Makuutu rare earth project, produces a basket that's balanced, approximately 73% critical plus heavy rare earths. So it will produce a vast amount of heavy rare earths into the future. And these are products that are typically only found in, or only produced by similar type deposits in southern China and Myanmar. The product that we produce will go into electric vehicles, but also applications in offshore wind turbines, defence, communication, and other electronic applications. The project is very large. It has the potential to support a life of in excess of 27 years, significant upside potential. And over the course of the next few weeks, we're starting to get some reconnaissance drilling results back on our prospective eastern target that we acquired earlier this year. The project is well supported by existing infrastructure, and the strategic nature of the project is underlined by the fact that we have signed a non-binding MOU with a subsidiary of Chinalco, China Rare Earths Jiangsu. They completed about 12 months of DD on the project. But we do continue to talk with other global groups who are very interested in getting access to our critical and heavy rare earth supply. These rare earths are going to be limited in the future in as far as their ability to be found elsewhere. And with the massive demand that's looming, Makuutu really does start to stand apart from our peers. Looking at our snapshot, the company market cap is around about $90 million. We have cash on hand of around about 12.2 million as of the end of the last quarter. The project itself, located in eastern Uganda, stretches across a mineralisation corridor that's roughly around about 37 kilometres end to end. We've tested 26 kilometres of mineralisation and defined that within our current resource estimate. That stands at 315 million tonnes. And based upon the indicated resources, we were able to complete a recent scoping study, producing a production target around 84 million tonnes, 85 million tonnes. We still have potential for a substantial increase in the scale of the project, with potential for another 200 million tonnes of production target once we increase the classification on that resource. So one of the key activities we're working on at the moment, we're about to commence the next phase of infill drilling, which will look at increasing the indicated resource base in the Makuutu central zone. So typically immediately adjacent to the green area in the central area of the image there. The mineralisation is very shallow. The average depth of the holes that we've drilled to date is about 17 metres. And that's typified by approximately 3 metres of cover, which sits on top of the ionic adsorption clay zone. So we end up with a very favourable strip ratio of about 0.76 to 0.78 over the potential 27-year life of the project. We also have a number of near-term additional exploration targets that can be converted with a small amount of drilling. And as I mentioned, the very prospective area out to the east, which has recently had some completed reconnaissance holes, and we're expecting the assays back over the course of the next few weeks. Talking about the infrastructure and the project location, so we're 120 kilometres east of Kampala, in a really well-developed part of eastern Uganda. We have immediate access to existing infrastructure, including low-cost hydroelectric power, road, rail, and mobile phone communications. So looking at the basket and the product that's generated from Makuutu, and looking at the criticality assessment completed by the EU on the critical raw materials last year, we see that the rare earth elements that are produced by the project all fairly well sit within that critical defined range, typified by the magnet rare earths, dysprosium, samarium, gadolinium, neodymium, praseodymium, and terbium. And cumulatively, in our basket, we end up with a weighted average basket that sits with a high supply risk and a very high economic importance going forward. This is something that makes Makuutu very unique, in that being one of the only ionic adsorption clays that are being developed outside of southern China and Myanmar at present. We stand as being a very unique access for strategic groups who are now looking to secure their own source of critical and heavy rare earths into the future. Typically, with the rare earths industry, there's a lot of focus on neodymium and praseodymium. Obviously, they're key ingredients for the permanent magnets required for electric vehicle motors. But what's commonly overlooked is the impact of dysprosium and terbium. Now, the dysprosium and terbium, again, come from the ionic adsorption clays, predominantly out of southern China and Myanmar. And so a project like Makuutu provides a balanced product that can supply the dysprosium and terbium that will enable a portion of these permanent magnets to be generated to support the development of electric vehicles going forward. We touched on earlier, one of the presentations earlier talked about the move on the move away from internal combustion engines, with international governments looking at banning the sale of those engines and being replaced by electric vehicles. And we see, obviously, that the forecasts around the projected uptake of electric vehicles is absolutely breathtaking. But I suppose the next thing is, well, as the cost of the EVs come down, potentially what happens when EVs become cheaper than the internal combustion engines. And so the adoption of EVs, certainly over the course of the last few years, has been fantastic to see, and going forward, potentially a very key driver towards the world's desire to achieve carbon neutrality. When we talk about the growth in EVs, we also should balance that with, obviously, the demand that's obviously going to come from alternative applications such as offshore wind turbines. And so, combined with electric vehicles and renewable energies, we're going to see, well, the predictions are substantial growth and demand for the magnet rare earths over the course of the next, the course of this decade. But realistically, beyond the next decade, beyond 2030, the forecast on growth of between 11 to 26-fold expansion on the current rare earth magnet supply seems to be a very difficult one to comprehend where that supply of rare earths is going to come from in the future. So one of the key advantages of Makuutu and what sets us apart as a project is the fact that our product is a magnet-dominant product. When we talk about the basket, we focus on the critical and the heavy rare earths. What's commonly overlooked is the significant content of magnet rare earths that exist in our basket. And that magnet content exceeds just beyond the praseodymium, the neodymium, dysprosium, and terbium. other magnet rare earths such as samarium, gadolinium, and holmium combine to make up about 43% of our cumulative basket, which means that a project like Makuutu will enable a substantial deployment of high-end applications using electric vehicle, using batteries to drive the magnets, permanent magnet motors in many applications going forward. Looking at our Makuutu rare earths project and just sort of touching upon the investment highlights of the scoping study we announced. The study announced an 11-year project life as a base case. Again, that was based on the predominantly indicated resource base of the project. The economic outputs of the project were very robust, indicating the potential for a substantial amount of post-tax free cash flow over the 11-year period, high EBITDA, a robust internal rate of return, and all for a modest pre-production capital. The project actually enables the subsequent ramp up of throughput and funding the expansion of the project by the free cash flows that are generated from the project. So we see there's a potential for a substantial improvement in what we do with the project going forward. And one of the key activities we're working through at the moment is an optimization of that project ramp up sequence to look at the way in which we can further refine the economics of the project. And I'll leave with a clear, but a very, what should be front and center of investors' minds is that we have a very large project here, potential for something that will exceed 27 years, producing a very rare commodity in the critical and heavy rare earths, but specifically these magnet rare earths that will be critical to partnering with the batteries that will be used to build this EV thematic going forward into the future. Thank you.